Clownie Nerf.
That's right. Looks like we're going build blog, log, hog, slog, dog, whatever, log, dog, mog, tog, frog again. This is a long way overdue one because I should have done this immediately after End War. But we're going to turn these because they got a relatively low price tag, and I was impressed with the one the Shade gave me, into something worthwhile. I was thinking of doing these, but I haven't worked out all the bugs for the top barrel trickery that I'm working with yet, so I haven't gotten around to doing that. So this is going to be what we're going to be doing for End War debuggery or something like that. And I might have to switch to my overhead camera because this is sort of annoying again. I don't really care for this type of view, but having that angle is a little better. And I suddenly realize I don't have a box for my shell parts. So yeah, you know what? I think I do, because I don't think I'm going to paint this wood at all. I might give it a dry brush to texture it because it's really kind of nice, but I really like that look. And I wasn't thinking of painting the silver either, but I think I'm going to find me a nice gunmetal and do that. It's debatable whether I'm going to do the little bits on here, but there's not a whole lot going on with these. Oh wow, the plunger heads are screwed in mighty tight. That's rather good. I wonder how the seal, oh there it is, looking around for it, the seal is. It's not bad, but it's not good. There's always room for improvement, I guess. A wrap or two of tape ought to fix that. So unlike the previous ones I did for NVZ 2016 giveaway, I'm going to take the R restrictors out of this one. And hopefully not destroy the mounting that goes along with this, because I don't have to drill them out. I just have to get it over the lip, and that is a really bendy piece, and that is bent. Good job, moron. Well, I'm probably going to glue it down anyways. Oh wow, they even use a nice little rubber gasket on their tongue. Looks like a tongue. Wish I had a marker I could draw a little smiley face on that. It's a neat little bit and a shitty spring. I would glue, uh-oh, that's down. Just put some glue and that'll hold that right back together. There's a fair amount of dead space in that cone. Maybe I'll shim it and take that out. This is the modding process, people. You start with one thing and then you keep adding crap to it. Before you know it, your day project turns into something you're working on 3 months later. Well, I'm going to strip these out and hopefully remember where the parts go. I just want to show everybody something real quick, which is really freaking irritating here. You see, you got this whole thing which is really nice to break down. It breaks down the colors. It actually kind of looks really neat, like this. Here's something that's pissing me off. This little pin here holds a major section of retention to help guide and hold this stuff into place, okay? It goes through a hole like anything else, like these guys. Look at that shit. Like, oh my god. That is some seriously shitty job. I mean, I can flex this by touching it. That is what's retaining your handle from getting loose and flipping around a little bit. That shit. This tiny, thin, wafer thin mint piece of plastic. X-Shot, we know you can do better than this. Okay, Zuru? You can do better than this. That's Jaru quality crap right there, guys. Right there. We all know how much I love Jaru quality. That is ridiculous. There is no excuse for that at all. That is dumb. That is, I mean, that is thin and tiny, and it holds on to what could possibly be a major irritating thing. Nothing major, just irritation. Ugh. God. Cut your plastic costs where you need them to. Leave them in your structurer, okay? That's just a smart idea. I forgot how much I hated doing this crap. This is boring. I'm sitting here watching my buddy Beaker play till dawn, and I got a piece of cardboard over the keyboard to help keep the dust out, because being in the shop, it's starting to get dust in there, and I still haven't been smart enough to buy a can of duster as of this video being released, which I'll probably still won't have a can of duster in that within the time frame of this video being released. Oh god. This thing is covered in textural areas, like textural, bumpy. And I don't want to sand it off because I made that mistake once before. I'm trying to do that to the rapid, that stupid split strike thing. Working on one of those. Tried to sand off all the digi camo because I hate it. I'm not going to try to do that crap again. So I'm just lightly roughing this up. The goal today is to get 2 blasters done and painted base black, provided I still have black paint, because I haven't checked to see if I even have the damn black Krylon or vinyl dye that I was going to use, and I kind of have to go pick it up then. I know I'm going to have to go pick up colors. I just don't want to have to do it today, because I have to work 6 days in a row coming up. It's going to be a very ungrateful week plus doing so. I'd rather be here and chill, because I could always send somebody out to grab it or Facebook help. But it's easier to just be lazy and do more sanding. Because if I don't have the paint I need, I'm going to sand some more. May or may not have had recorded what the hell I was just talking about, because my heart camera flashed out on me. Loves it when it does that. Pain in the ass. I was talking about Beaker's channel and watching him play till dawn, and how much a pain in the ass sanding is, how much I hate it, how boring it is, and then it went all standby on me. So the hell with that. Oh, I'm not sure if it's the memory card or what the hell is it. Please recognize this cup, anybody? Probably one person in particular. My health food water. Ugh. Sure as hell doesn't beat soda. But 0 calories, 0 salt. Lots of flavor at least. Still makes me pee. Like every other liquid. So, I guess before I have to pee again, I'm gonna go back to listening to Beaker play Till Dawn. And then get this one done and that, and go into, I guess, uploading. If I get one sanded off and painted a day, it's not too bad. I was really flexy a minute ago. Oh well. Alright guys, see you in the next segment. Hello, hands up here. So in all of my infinite wisdom and problem solving, I have determined that it is too cold outside to paint, and that's I have decided inadvertently to be lazy and not do what I decided I was going to do for the first place for the giveaway blasters, and I needed to perfect other skills, which is just more excuses. I decided that this is going to be a different blaster for the giveaway after I've already sanded, prepped, and painted quite a few shells of the other blaster. Instead, we are going to be learning how to make that. Which is kind of cool because a number of you actually asked me on how do I do it to make a little monologue and stuff like that. So not only is this my first ever really monologue. The first thing you're going to have to do is get yourself a screwdriver and something to put a whole bunch of screws in. I like to use this little keggy thing. It was full of candy. Candy is awesome. Then take all your screws out. Once I've done that to the other 3, and yes, this is 1 black and 2 gray blasters, one of which is mine. The other ones were donated by Beaker, which is absolutely awesome of him to do so. Which, if this goes well, I'll actually be doing quite a bit. It gets cold in the shop here. Professionalism. One of the many hallmarks of this channel. We will have the screws out, and then we will start going over the stuff that you need to get. Alright, as you can see, this is definitely a thrift store blaster. It is corroded to all hell. It's going to require quite a bit of cleaning up for this. It's also sun-baked and full of bug shit, which is awful. So the parts you're going to have to keep in this thing is make sure you don't lose these little buggers. They're going to come back later to make you dart guides, so make sure you keep them together in one form or another. I'm going to probably end up running a twisty tie or something through them, or just a small dot of super glue. Number one thing that you always lose out of a night finder, in the very base of the handle here, is this stupid little square nut. The one that I made for the Dead Space Mark II, I lost and luckily had one laying around from a broken, from a couple of night finders using, because I made those guitars. You don't really need to do anything utterly special of this, and I probably should have it this way because it's much easier for you guys to see. Utterly special about this stuff here, I like to remove the plunger tubes and the other stuff along these lines. Just make sure you don't lose your screws in doing so, and then once you're done, because you're going to have to find new O-rings and stuff later, and I'll put a parts list up on this so you don't lose anything. Make sure you know what to get, and then yes, another piece that goes flying can go in your little bucket thing that you have. I'm going to take the screws off because they go missing too. This can stay in place because it's alright, and then this thing actually just kind of falls apart because this is an old one. Which will make this doing a lot easier to take your air restrictor out, because this is really never this easy. But it's kind of redundant because I kind of need this in one piece because it's going to go, there's going to be a lot of work done on, well, some work done on the plunger tube here. So we're going to do a quick marking to show you what needs to come out. Got a little marker here. First thing you're going to have to remove is this bad boy right here. That whole thing comes off, and then your plunger tube is going to get cut down to a length, and we'll get that covered next. Because my battery is going to die, apparently. Then there will also be some cutting down here, and I believe that will be coming out completely there like that, but you have to watch to expose this. It's probably a good idea to remove your electronics, but because the wiring and the soldering is so delicately awful, I choose not to. Although I may have a better idea on how to handle this later. So I'm going to disassemble the other two and then run some charge in this and cut the front piece off, and we'll pick it back up from there when that's done and I have some more charge in the camera. Wobbly cam time. When you do your cuts and you take these things off, these little parts here, which is just the flashing that goes around the front of the barrel. You want to make sure that you leave enough see how it's kind of ugly and it's sitting around, and this one's actually broken, which sucks. See how there is a lip that goes over these. You want to make sure you leave enough so when you do this, you can go back and you can clean these up. You have enough to make sure it's flush as you grind it down. So that way you don't wind up with a horrible, horrible mess. And what I'm doing here is now Angry Face Guy. Angry Face Guy says Clownie's pissed off, the blaster is broken. Likey swoosh. So your next step, after doing all this fancy stuff here and getting your parts grinded out, as you can see, these are put in. They're going to be nice and smooth. There will be further shell cutting on this later, I guarantee it. For now, I've taken the piece and put it over here, so it works out okay. And I suddenly realized maybe I actually have a better rig for doing this. So I think I'm probably going to end up setting that up for the rest of the shots here on things, because it's a little better than this weird side angle. You're going to have to get yourself some CPVC. I believe these are 1/2-inch couplers. Now, they start out, oh, not couplers, end caps, non-threaded. They start out with all this texting on them, which is okay, but for a nice clean look, I can't stand that. So I always grind off the extra bits and take out those. And for the final polishing on that, I always recommend, just in case you get them, it's real easy, these gypsum boards. I've said these things more than one occasion. These things are awesome. Okay, after you get these cleaned up, or whether or not you want to or not, you're going to have to cut your barrel length shorter. So what you're going to need to do is take your little CPV thing, and you're going to have to ream the insides out, and we'll go over that to show the fitting. And you're going to place it on the back of this little part here and cut it down so it fits inside. So it's going to go right over here, which will result in your barrel being cut shorter. And then you'll have to open your piece up in the front here a bit more. So I'm going to set the rig up for the other parts of this like an intelligent monkey and do the rest of these things. And yes, I am wearing my vintage safety glasses because I love these things. So enough of the close-in fat look. We're going to go to the overhead fat look. That's a little better. So, I'm setting on my lights in the way. I actually have a nice armature for doing this. I just haven't gotten around to making it or putting it together, which I'll probably be doing shortly now, because apparently I'm going to have the need for this. because I plan on doing more of this. So what I've done, and the next step here, is I've knocked out the AR, but I have left the piece in here because we have good airflow around this, but I needed to make sure something in the plunger tube wasn't going to slam all the way through, and it wasn't going to then we would have something to buffer up against when we pat it, and it doesn't just hardly knock up against the back of this, which can cause different issues in braking. So if you have something to stop it, this would be a good idea. You can drill through this if you want to. I still may drill through that, but I haven't completely decided because it really doesn't make a difference in the airflow anyways. I've found that out. I've knocked out the center here to, well, out of force of habit, more or less, and then shorten this down to the first knuckle on this, because this went over here, and then I cut it down and cleaned it to the first knuckle, and that's all going to just get glued back together the way it came off, and then it goes back in the shell the way it was before, like this. But you have to get your little coupler on. So as you can see, these couplers don't exactly fit. Now I'm pretty sure there's a conduit one or something out there that would probably slide over, but I don't use those, so I'm gonna end up running the Dremel tool through these to get this to go on here. You just gotta kind of hollow it out more, and it makes a ton of foul tasting dust. I'm sure there's a different way to go about doing this, but I'm just frankly not going to do it because I found this to be the way I do it, and it's really late at night and I don't have any money, so I cannot run to the hardware store, and I will not be able to run to the hardware store because reasons and poorness. So there will be more cutting and shortening of this involved to get it to go in better, because you only need to get it to go through enough to fit, so it doesn't have to go all the way in. I just cut it to the knuckle in order to go to the closest fit. So I will have this bored out, and then we'll get back to it, because there is going to be fitting and things involved in the blaster part of the shell when you get those done. So after you've had that whole thing set up, you want to go ahead and grab your favorite, or at least the one that I currently had, epoxy or glue, and set it up together and get your parts set up nice and even like this, more or less. I did not take the center air restrictor thing out, but it's still going to have excellent airflow. I happen to have some clamps laying around because my dad bought me some, which was really awesome of him. I think if you don't have some, you probably should, because as long as you keep it under tension, you'll get a better seal. Notice how flush and actually somewhat uneven it is up against the side here, but that's okay because, oh wait, yeah, one important thing. See this little knob hole here? Cosmetically, I like to make sure that is pointing down. So when I load it in, it's like this. Oh crap, which is the other way, like that. See? That way that little thing doesn't show and it doesn't make your blasters look kind of weird. So I'm going to reload this thing back up and put it back under some pressure, not a lot, and let it sit and seal overnight. And that will be pretty much the end of me doing this for now, as soon as I can find a place to set this thing in. And inside of a barrel brake looks like a likely spot to go ahead and have some fun with it. So after you get that thing set in there, the next part's going to be fitting this into here, which will require a small amount of shell modification to make sure it goes in. So you just end up having to grab your favorite Dremel bit and then cutting it so you could slide this in and out. So when I get that done, I'll have the plunger tube and everything reinstalled, and that will have that set. Maybe I'll have a better camera view by then if I can get the other part made, which wouldn't be such a bad idea, because this is kind of awkward. It's further out than I like to work, and I can't really set it to where I like it, and the armature would be better. So I may work on that as well. Stay tuned, or just wait a couple of seconds. So after you've got your plunger tube glued together, you're going to have something that looks like that. Far different from the original plunger tube you've had before. By much far different. It's all capped up, set up, ready to go. And the next part's going to be fitting. You have to fit it into the knife finder shell, but now there's a new problem because it doesn't close. You can see that there's a nice healthy little gap there that will be on both sides. And since that doesn't work, we need to close. We're going to have to cut this part away here into a larger circle to make it fit, as well as, since you have it now, you're going to have to cut this part back a little further. So I'm going to grab a pencil because I don't want to do this with marker, which is why I wasn't really utterly worried about it being broke entirely. You want to go back to just about where the screw port is here on the thing. If the camera wants to play along fairly, there we go. I cut pretty much even with it, right about there, because I like to have the screw port kind of hidden a little bit by some plastic yet. You can go all the way back if you want, but then you have to grind on top of the screw port, and that's a real pain in the ass because you never quite get it flat. So you just line your line straight back with the original line here that's cut, and then just make your angle before the screw port. I would suggest that you put both your shells together when doing so you can have your lines when you do this, and I'll get the damn light where it can actually be useful. You want to make sure your lines are going to be, you're not going to see this because I'll show you in a second. It makes it easier to make sure everything is lined up. So that way you don't cut back too far, because one side of the screw port is larger than the other, so they nest and fit. So, and that will be apparent why you do this here in a little while, because when you run the hoses down through, you're going to have to run the hoses, which means you'll also have to cut sections down here. But we're going to try something a little different this time. Instead of removing a massive amount of plastic, we're going to try to put little holes through. So I'm going to cut this off, and we'll be up on the next step then. Alright, after you've gotten this thing all put together, and you can see the hole is a little wider, and I reinstalled the thing there so you can get a better look at what's going on here. Get this nice open front end, and now everything closes. And you have a nice gap here to get your wires and hose down through, which admittedly I probably should make holes and drill them through, but it's more to feed, so I'm probably never going to do that because that's just a huge hassle to do things like that. So the next part we're going to work on here is the barrels for the underslung part of this, and you're going to need yourself some 17/32 brass and these little suckers back on a dart to measure your length. And I like to use a piece of I think it's 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch copper. I can't quite remember. I know it slides over the 17/32 with a relative ease, almost as nice as 9/18/16 or whatever the hell it is to make your breeches, but it's copper, so it's quite heavy. And the only reason I grabbed this stuff is because I've had it laying around, and I needed a way to make an end cap on the back of the blasters. So although this is going to pretty much end up going to be the end cap, and you'll see that in a couple minutes here, you need something in order to give it a bit more robust, and it frankly adds a really nice flair to the end of it. So the first step is going to be hogging this out, and you're gonna have to get both of them out. And this one I've already secured together with a little bit of super glue because they're kind of a pain to do when they're separate. So I had these taped for storage purposes just in case. Now when you take them apart, do make sure you set them back together in the proper fashion. Right now here I'm just trimming off a little molding flaws. This is obviously one of the older ones because the newer ones have these alignment tabs on them, which may or may not cause problems later. And if you don't get them back together in the direction they came apart, you're going to have problems trying to line them back up inside the bottom part of the shell. So just yank out your super glue. I like to use the gel. Couple of dots here and there just to secure the things together, because you're not really looking for permanent, it's just to hold it, but permanent will be fine because it's going to be put together anyhow. And then drop her down and try not to glue your damn fingers together and hold her for a couple seconds. That'll secure them, and then get your favorite drill bit out, or I prefer a Dremel, and start hogging it through to get it to fit through this. Once we've done that, we'll get back to the next step, which is going to be sizing, fitting, and everything else.